and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network. Be sure to like this video on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment. We always enjoy hearing from you. My name is Jesse Friedman. That is Jack Sommers on the screen next to me. And Jack, you did it again. You told us in our last episode that the Diamondbacks would do something early this week. We even said it came with a money-back guarantee. And sure enough, all the people are satisfied because Jack was right once again. The D-backs complete a trade on Tuesday morning, acquiring Nolan Arenado from the St. Louis Cardinals. Jack, congrats on being right once again. And also, what are your initial thoughts on this move?
Well, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. I mean, it was fairly clear that they were clearing space on the 40-man roster. As I mentioned last time, the very first words out of Mike Hazen's mouth were, when he discussed the Jake McCarthy trade, was 40-man roster and roster logistics. And they clearly needed to clear a space. And this is why. I mean, they needed to get this done ASAP. Initial thoughts are, I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to work out one way or the other. I mean, this is the prototypical low risk, high reward situation for the Diamondbacks, or moderately high reward. I mean, they may get a nice bounce back season from Arenado, and it's not costing them much. So the overall viewpoint for me is low risk, high reward. Although we'll get to it, there are some attendant costs to this that are not immediately apparent.
Well, we have a lot more thoughts to share, of course, on this move. But first, let's hear from Diamondbacks general manager Mike Hazen. He spoke to reporters earlier today. Here were his initial comments on acquiring Arenado from the St. Louis Cardinals.
I think he's a good fit for us as a team. You know, we lost some of our position player group last year in the middle of the season when I traded them at the deadline. So even though I know a lot of the fixation this offseason has been on the pitching, we still felt like adding back to the position player group was important for us. We think he really solidifies our defense on the infield. It's been a priority for us to improve our defense, which I believe is going to have a direct impact on our pitching in a significant way. And I think it builds out sort of the depth around our team, allowing some of the younger guys to, be versatile, play, have matchups selected for them, etc. And I like the way we've always liked the way he's played the game, the impact he can have when he's not playing inside the walls is important to us. I think he's a good fit from that standpoint too. I know how much winning means to him. It is important to him, and it's important to us.
Well, Jack, it is no secret that Nolan Arenado is not the player that he once was. Looking at his stats from 2025 with the Cardinals, he hit .237, 289 on base, 377 slug. It was a 666 OPS, 12 homers, 52 RBI. He spent some time, about 6 weeks, on the injured list with a shoulder injury, finished the year playing 107 games when all was said and done. So the name is big. I mean, there's a pretty decent chance that Nolan Arenado is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's already approaching 60 WAR for his career. I think there's a decent case to be made there. At the same time, Nolan Arenado has fallen off the past few years, Jack. I mean, there's no getting around it. Those offensive numbers are a far, far cry from the player that he was certainly with the Rockies and the player that he was with the St. Louis Cardinals. Even 2024, he had a 719 OPS, was a league average hitter, just above league average by OPS plus, and then he coasted well below that in 2025. So this is a much different player than the guy a lot of people remember with the Rockies for all those years. At the same time, Jack, like, he is still a pretty darn good defensive third baseman. You and I talked about this possibility in a show at the end of November because it certainly made some sense on paper. Arenado graded out well defensively in 2025. He was at +3 outs above average, +6 defensive runs saved. And it feels like that's really the impetus for this deal. The Diamondbacks wanting to solidify their defense while also hoping they get a bounce back from him offensively.
Right. So, a couple of key thoughts for me here. Number one, when I wrote that article back in November that we discussed, the key thing there was if the Diamondbacks don't have to pay too much of his salary, if the
Right.
Cardinals were willing to eat a sizable chunk, then it's worth a roll of the dice. Formerly great players are oftentimes able to muster up like one more last hurrah in their mid 30s. If you're looking for guys that are 34, 35, 36 to have a really good season, it may not be quite to his 6 or 7 WAR peak, but if you're looking for something that looks somewhat like that kind of season, a 4 or 5 WAR player from a mid season from a mid 30s guy, it's usually going to be a guy that was that guy before he turned 30 or 31. So that there's always that. Some people call it the dead cat bounce, which is a financial term. That's a kind of a stark reference, but it's very possible that he has a bounce back. The other thing I did want to point out is that Arenado actually, if you look at his first 37 games of 2025, his first 159 plate appearances, he
that
looked.
that doesn't sound like cherry picking at all, Jack.
No, no, no. I'll get there. Let me
No,
finish.
I get you. I get you.
I mean, my point is that he looked like Nolan Arenado. He hit 270.
Yeah.
He had a 778 OPS. It wasn't an 850. There were only 4 homers, but there were also only 17 strikeouts. 16 walks, 17 strikeouts, 10 doubles, right? 778 OPS. Coupled with his defense, I mean, that's a 2.5 WAR player easily.
Yeah.
And something went wrong for the rest of the season, obviously. And I don't know exactly when that shoulder issue began. Like, did he start slumping first and just regressing to his mean with his age and all of that, and then hurt the shoulder? Or did the shoulder injury come up around that time and precipitate the drop off? That I don't know. But it wouldn't shock me at all to see him at least rebound to 100, 110 OPS plus for one more season. I don't expect a 120, 130. But if you get 100, 110 with plus defense, then you're probably doing fine as far as what the contract is paying. Something that Mike just alluded to there about the younger players, which is Blaze Alexander, Jordan Lawlar, and any of their prospects that haven't come up yet. This is going to limit their ability to get reps on the infield dirt. Now, it's not. Michael's also saying that there is plenty of playing time to go around. They're going to need help in the outfield until Lourdes comes back, and also, guys are going to need days off. I mean, Arenado's probably not going to play 155 games. I think Mike also alluded to they've discussed kind of a way to kind of keep him from being, worn down. So I don't think they want to run a 35-year-old player out there to start 150 times. I think it's probably their target is going to be more like 140 or 45. Perdomo is going to need a few more days off than he got last year. Catel's going to need some time off his feet, either getting a break or going to DH. So there are still reps on the infield dirt, and there's reps to be had in the outfield and left field and against left-hand pitching in center field. Mike specifically mentioned matchups. So, he's talking about matching guys up and giving them the opportunity to be successful. But that being said, there's no two ways about it. There's some playing time being taken, a significant amount of playing time being taken away from younger players. And when I talk about the attendant cost, that's the cost you lose, the money lost, or the positive value that you lose when you have a young player that's pre-arb developing into a league average or better player. I mean, if you got a guy that's making league minimum and worth 2 WAR, that's a really valuable player, right? Because he's only making 800,000 plus, and on the free agent market, 1 WAR is costing at least $10, $11 million. So if you got a 2 WAR player, he's worth 20 million at least. Even once you pay him his league minimum salary, so there's a significant cost to be lost significant value to be lost. And that's the attendant cost I was talking about. But there's uncertainty. Will Jordan Lawlar or will Blaze Alexander be league average players over 145 starts? There's a lot of legitimate question marks about that as well.
Mike Hazen very much acknowledged what you're saying in the presser that, yeah, I mean, there are fewer plate appearances to go around. That's just part of bringing in an established major league player who's definitely going to get a good chunk of playing time. Here's Mike talking about the competition that is going to exist for the reps that are still out there.
I think, look, there's now another established major league player on the roster who's going to try to build out as much competition. I think, look, there's now another established major league player on the roster who's going to play, and so that's going to have some impact on what's available. My contention is there's still plenty to be, the way you want to look at it, there's still plenty of opportunity available. It doesn't seem like Lourdes is going to be ready to break at the beginning of the year, so there's going to be opportunity out there as well. I'm not 100% sure that we're going to continue to add. We're going to continue to look at the offense and the lineup in ways, whether maybe first base DH, but I'm not 100% certain that we're going to land down on any of those spots. And, and that's going to create opportunity at bats in certain places. And, we'll see. I'm trying to build out as much competition as I can early in the year and see where these guys take it. But there's going to be opportunity.
Well, you heard Mike talk about it there, that this is going to diminish the reps that are out there, but there's still plenty of opportunity to go around, and it's not all that hard to see where he's coming from. I mean, the Diamondbacks still don't have a left fielder for at least some of the season. Maybe Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is going to be ready by week 2 with the way some of these Instagram videos are looking, but realistically, you're probably still looking at least a couple months into the year before Lourdes is a factor. And as you've talked about many times, Jack, the Diamondbacks still don't have a DH. I mean, as of right now, it feels like Adrian Del Castillo would be getting a whole lot of reps against righties in that DH slot. So maybe they use that as a way to cycle in some of these young guys, maybe get Ketel Marte off his feet more often and have those guys play in the field. So I think it's a good point, though. I mean, there is a cost in a sense in that you are now not collecting as much information about your young players. And I've seen some people react on this on Twitter that, the moment the D-backs have an actual opening for Jordan Lawlar, they just jump at the chance to fill that spot and make it so he doesn't really have an opportunity anymore. I don't know if that's really an issue, though. Like this decision to me still feels like a calculated, we want there to be some level of opportunity, which I still think there is, but do you actually want to pencil in Jordan Lawlar as like this guy kind of has to play every day for us? Like he's the plan A and there is no plan B. I'm not sure it makes sense to go that far either. So to me, getting Arenado in the mix, a veteran who I think could bring a good amount to the clubhouse and being, I don't know if leader is, I guess more leader by example, it feels like is kind of how you would describe Arenado. But I think him being on the roster still fits together for me.
Yeah, I mean, one source that I contacted said, part of the issue with Colorado was he was not the vocal type leader that a lot of people might expect that he is. He's very intense. He's got a burning passion to win. He cares. He plays hard. He prepares hard. I mean, he leads by example. But, I think the Rockies wanted him to be more of that captain-y type leader in the clubhouse. And that he said, that's not who I am. And like you signed me to be who I am. That's, you signed me, you didn't sign some other guy. And I think that was actually maybe a point of friction between him and the Rockies prior to him being traded to the Cardinals. So, I wouldn't expect him to be the same type of personality as, say, like an Evan Longoria and always giving, inspiring speeches and anecdotes and stuff like that. I mean, that's not who he is. Nolan Arenado just needs to go out and play above average defense. So lock down that third base defense and try to stay healthy and see if he can recover some of his offensive value. That's it. He's not being paid very much. It's $5 million this year, $6 million next year. It's
Well,
$11 million.
he is being paid quite a bit, just not by the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I correct myself. So the Cardinals are eating $31 million of this, and so I don't think that it's not really going to be that harsh a situation if he just doesn't perform at all and the bottom falls out for the D-backs to cut bait on his playing time or even DFA him. I mean, I hate to use those words on a day like this, but it's a low risk. That's the impetus for me. That it's a low risk situation for the Diamondbacks, and the main cost to them, the main risk to them, is missing out on development time. But hey, look, I could see like the Chicago White Sox or the Miami Marlins or the Washington Nationals having a player like Blaze or like Jordan and say, okay, go ahead and give him 500-600 plate appearances and just let him run. And if they give you an 85 OPS plus and make 18 errors, that so be it. It's part of their development as a young player. And the Diamondbacks are trying to get back to the postseason. Should be no doubt about that. Clearly they want to stay close enough until they get all their reinforcements back mid-season, maybe make some trade deadline noise. But their intention is to stay close on this wild card up till the trade deadline and then see if they have a chance to make a move. And so this is part of that. They're trying to raise the floor.
We talked earlier about the offense and the fact that Nolan Arenado's stats have continued to trend in a negative direction. I want to add a little bit more color to that and sort of specifically, like, what is it about Arenado that's different now versus 5-6 years ago? But we'll check in with Mike Hazen once again. Here's Mike talking about Arenado specifically on the offensive side of the ball.
I don't, last year I'm sure it didn't go great as well as he had wanted it to. We definitely see the ability to bounce back here. We're excited about that. We know how much work he's going to put into that. I think as guys get older in this league and the league evolves and they need to continue to evolve, and I know he's going to put in every amount of work and energy into doing that. We probably have a little better ballpark to hit in. And so we look for him to be a solid offensive contributor for us in our lineup. I think, with the firepower we have at the top of our lineup, we're not looking for him to carry the offense. We don't need him to carry the offense. We need him to solidify and stabilize our defense. That's a huge component to this. I think it's a huge value to what he brings to the table, and what he's going to do from a leadership standpoint. I'm excited about.
It feels to me, listening to that, Jack, that the Diamondbacks are really counting on Arenado to play great defense, to, as Mike said there, to solidify, to stabilize the infield on that side of the ball. And it feels like the offense is sort of just like bonus points. Like, if he's able to bounce back, great. But we don't necessarily need that to happen in order for him to have some value for us.
That's absolutely correct. And I mean, that's the bottom line here, right? Like I just said earlier, if they got league average production offensively and his defense stays at least where it was last year for at least one more year, then they're going to be, peachy creamy here. They're going to be fine.
Arenado's Savant page, we can take a look at this real quick. It's not pretty in most respects, but there is some bright red here, Jack. Arenado's game has sort of evolved where he really does not strike out. He's never been a guy to strike out a whole lot, but he actually strikes out less now than he did during some of his peak seasons. His strikeout rate in 2025 was 11.2%, 96th percentile. His zone contact rate, so this is the percentage of swings that he takes in the strike zone, on pitches in the strike zone. What percentage of those does he make contact? That rate in 2025 was 91.3%, highest rate of his career. He's making more contact in the zone than ever before. However, some of the power stuff here is just really low. I mean, a barrel rate of 3.9%, that's in the 12th percentile. Average exit velo at 86.8 miles per hour, that's in the 10th percentile. So it's a really interesting profile at this point where Arenado is not striking out much at all, I think his strikeout rate is lower than was lower than Alex Bregman this past year, another name we've talked about a lot lately. But when he puts the ball in play, man, he is just not doing a lot of damage. He does not have the ability to drive the ball that he once did.
Yeah, and again, you just have to hope that the shoulder was part of that.
Yeah.
If the shoulder was impacting his ability to drive the ball, then that's one thing. But look, those numbers were down as well in 2024. Not as bad as the bubbles you just had on the screen. If you go to his Baseball Savant page, you can kind of toggle back and forth, and you can see a big change already from 23 to 24 in that regard. And then in 2025, the bottom fell out of his ability to drive the ball completely. So, he definitely needs that dead cat bounce I was talking about in that department. And look, this is the way it goes, right? I mean, sometimes players at 34, 35 fall off a cliff, and sometimes they just have a down year because they're not healthy, and they get fully healthy and they kind of bounce back and look like their old selves again. So we'll find out where he lands on that spectrum.
Chase Field is not the hitter's ballpark that so many people still seem to think it is. I guess it depends sort of on where you look. I mean, on Baseball Savant, Chase Field from 2023 to 2025 gets a 103 park factor, which is actually fourth highest in baseball in that span. But it is certainly not the home run park that people perceive it to be. It's actually below average when it comes to home runs, but well above average when it comes to doubles and especially triples. So I'm not sure that Chase Field is like the perfect ballpark for Arenado in the way that some people think it is, but it's probably better than Busch Stadium, Jack. I think that's probably fair to say. Chase is not as harsh on right-handed power hitting as it is for left-handed power hitters. So Arenado is still a guy who drives the ball in the air a pretty good amount. Again, those fly balls are not going as deep as they once did, but he still has a knack for getting the ball in the air to the pull side. And I think that will probably play a little better at Chase Field than it did over at Busch Stadium.
Yeah, for bat side right-handers, Busch Stadium has a 85 home run park factor, and Chase Field has a 97. That's a 3-year rolling average. Okay, so it's not all based on it's from 23 to 25. So 97, a little closer to neutral. It's still a little below the average. It's like 17th in the league for right-handed hitters. It's left-handed batters that have really had their power crushed at Chase Field the last several seasons.
Eugenio Suarez showed us that for a right-handed power hitter, Chase Field is not necessarily an obstacle. Not to say that Nolan Arenado has the kind of power that Eugenio Suarez does, because certainly that was not at all the case in 2025. There's a pretty massive difference there. One other point that I'll make on this, Jack, is watching Nolan Arenado from afar, kind of from up close, given that he was in the NL West for so long. You always got the sense that he was sort of an emotional player. That when he was really engaged, that's when he would perform the best. And he's coming from a situation in St. Louis that very clearly did not work for him and clearly did not work for the Cardinals. Cardinals, it is very obvious, wanted to trade Nolan Arenado this offseason. They pretty much publicly said it. I think last offseason they publicly talked about how dealing Arenado to a better situation was a priority for them. And so I wonder if getting him out of St. Louis to a team that is certainly imperfect, not saying the Diamondbacks are like the going all in, about to contend for the World Series type situation, but this is a team that wants to win in 2025. This is a team that wants to be competitive and is certainly making that a central goal, where St. Louis was more in a place of rebuilding, of trying to get opportunities for their young guys. I know Nick Piccoro in his story today, he mentioned that Arenado is apparently pretty excited about this trade. He had to waive his no trade clause in order to make it happen. So he kind of made that apparent that he was on board with this. So I think you can hope on that a little bit, Jack, that maybe him getting to a different situation, being able to engage a little bit more might help him turn things around.
Yeah, and I think it's also notable that he still has that no trade clause. By the way, that
Yeah.
carries through the end of his 2-year contract. So yes, I mean absolutely. That's a great point. And it did kind of come up somewhat today. About his desire to be here. There's even I've even read some speculation that maybe the Cardinals had another deal or two, and he didn't waive the no trade clause, and he really wanted to come to Arizona, and that maybe had something to do with why the D-backs got him so cheaply.
And it was that. I guess we haven't even discussed what was technically the full trade. The Diamondbacks parted with their eighth round draft pick from 2025 in this deal, a pitching prospect whose name is currently eluding me. It is
Martinez,
Jack Martinez.
Martinez, but I read that it's actually pronounced Martinez.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jack Martinez goes to the St. Louis Cardinals in the deal. Again, eighth round pick for the Diamondbacks in 2025. Apparently the Cardinals liked him, but in the grand scheme of prospects and what the Diamondbacks have in their organization, you're really just taking on the money, which is $11 million over the next 2 years. That's what the Diamondbacks are on the hook for. The Cardinals are paying the other 31 million. I guess another aspect of this, Jack, is Blaze Alexander and Jordan Lawlar. I know we alluded to this earlier with what this means for them. I know a thought that's come through your head is like maybe as the Diamondbacks continue in this offseason and look for opportunities to improve, do you think that one of those guys could be part of a trade as the D-backs kind of try to maximize the assets that they have?
That's certainly a possibility. When Mike was asked, as we kind of move on now to like the bullpen and if they're going to add, I guess, whether or not he was still looking to add another reliever. They did add a reliever this week. We'll be talking about in a moment. But, he very quickly, like when Mike goes, yes, like he always, when it's an absolute, like, no ambiguity, then he gives you that yes very quickly, very direct, and very blunt, and he stops at yes. So when asked if he still was going to be adding to the bullpen, he said yes.
Yeah.
Now that could be a free agent, but it's very possible that they'll have a trade going on here. So if they have now a glut of infielders, then maybe they're going to move one. One other point I wanted to mention was I asked Mike whether or not this meant that Cattell would get more DH reps than last year, and he was not willing to go there. He kind of ultimately fell on it would probably be similar to last year. So, I don't see Cattell going to play DH more than 20, 25 times based on what Mike said. Now, that could change. But based on what he said today, ultimately it seems like similar to last year. So if Cattell's not sliding over to DH all that much more than last year, there really isn't that much extra playing time. I mean, if you get 145 games from Arenado and 150 games from Perdomo and 120 games from Cattell, I mean, how many games between second, short, and third are there? Sure, somebody might get hurt, somebody might underperform. It's not that you're never going to need more than one utility player, but they have other guys coming up too. They have Tommy Troy, who's knocking on the door and ready to come on in. I'm sure at some point Ildemaro Vargas is going to make his way back to the 40-man roster just because.
Of course.
So it does seem that Lawlar or Blaze could be used as trade bait. And I wouldn't be shocked if it happened this week. I mean, I think that there still could be more news coming down the pike this week regarding the Diamondbacks bullpen.
So can we hold you to the money back guarantee once again, Jack? Like you're gonna buy everyone a T-shirt from snakesterritoryshop.com if it doesn't come to pass?
No, I'm not as thoroughly convinced that move is
Okay.
going to come this week, but I do think that they're trying to swing something. Either a signing. I can feel it in my bones. They're trying to swing a signing or a trade, but they may not get to where they want to get to within this week.
Fair enough. Well, the Diamondbacks did sign a reliever in the past 24 hours as well. So we're going to talk about that guy on the other side of this break. But first, if you're joining us here on YouTube, we really appreciate you being here. Be sure to drop a like on this video, subscribe to our channel if you're joining us over on YouTube. And if you're joining us on an audio only platform, it really helps us out if you would subscribe to us on an audio only platform, and also leave us a 5-star review if you are so willing. That really helps us out, and we say thank you in advance for doing that. So Jack, we mentioned it, the Diamondbacks did sign a reliever. It was not maybe the more significant move that you are alluding to that might be coming down the pipeline, but they did sign right-handed pitcher Jonathan Loaisiga, longtime member of the New York Yankees. This is just a minor league deal, which I was maybe somewhat surprised by. Loaisiga did pitch 29 and 2/3 innings with the Yankees last year, a 4.25 ERA, a 1.48 WHIP, 10 walks to 25 strikeouts. The numbers, Jack, are not anything that would jump off the page, but Loaisiga is pretty decent stuff. So I think getting him on a minor league deal still came as a small surprise, at least to me.
Yeah, I think it's not just last year. I mean, he's had a slew of injuries over the last several years.
Yeah.
And so he came back from brace surgery in mid-May. He had brace surgery on his elbow in 2024, and he came back in mid-May. And then he went on the IL on August 1 with a back issue. And then during his rehab, he suffered a flexor tendon strain on his right elbow. So, layer all that on top of an already troublesome injury history. It's probably not that surprising that it was a minor league deal. Despite the fact that, he's been very effective in the past. I think 2021 was his best season. I think that was a year he threw 70 innings and put up some really good numbers. The stuff is there if he can stay healthy. So, there's some upside there, but it's obviously not costing them a lot. This may be a situation where, again, if you can get him healthy and get him right and get 30 or 40 innings out of him, that might be enough. Especially with Puck and Martinez maybe coming back in the second half of the year. I certainly don't think their expectation is to get 60 innings out of Jonathan Loaisiga. By the way, if you have trouble pronouncing his name, we can always adopt the New York Yankees fans' given nickname for him, Johnny Lasagna.
It's a tricky one. I will not lie. Well, yeah, you can definitely see where the minor league deal is coming from. It does make sense. I mean, seeing that he's only pitched 51 1/3 innings at the big league level the past 3 years, and it's not like his results in 2025 when he was healthy were anything extraordinary. But let's hear from Mike Hazen. Here's what Mike Hazen had to say in his presser about Jonathan Loaisiga.
I think he's got great stuff. We've always liked him from afar, and he's going to go into the mix, and there's going to be opportunity in our pen. There's going to be coming into spring training. I think we should be a very attractive place for players to come in and compete. We have a number of good young arms, but there is still a couple spots in our pen that are not established, and we're hopeful to continue to bring in guys that could impact that in a real tangible way.
I know the phrase bridge closer has not been especially popular around here, Jack, but Gambo, shortly after this move came out, did mention that Loaisiga could be part of the quote-unquote bridge closer situation for the Diamondbacks. Of course, it would be contingent on him coming into spring training and really looking good. Maybe he could do the Shelby Miller thing, what we saw from Shelby in 2025, where he looked good in spring training, made the team, and then wound up the closer at a point during the season. So it looks like the Diamondbacks are viewing Loaisiga as maybe a big part of their bullpen, at least in the first half of the season.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, in our recent episode, we took a look at 15 pitchers that the Diamondbacks might be interested in, and this pitcher was sixth on that list. And the reason he was there was because he had a very healthy xERA in 2025, albeit in 30 innings pitched. But you can see him right there in the middle of this chart, 3.69 xERA. And I pointed out during that episode that the D-backs very often look to some version of xERA. So that's why I created this list of pitchers that seem to have good expected underlying stats. That might be somebody they would target. So, this shouldn't come as a shock that a guy right from the smack dab middle of this list is somebody that they did target. The fact that they got him on a minor league deal, all the better. His projections call for about a 4 ERA in 2026. So, between that 25 xERA and 26 projections, you might get 3.8 to 4.0. And, that's the way it goes with relievers. I mean, that aren't elite. You probably hope to get, 2 good months to offset 1 bad month. That's really what you're looking for here from a pitcher like this.
He does, just to speak to the stuff real quick, he throws a sinker as his primary pitch that averaged 97, just under 97 miles an hour in 2025. Averaged 98 if you go back to 2024 and the few major league innings that he pitched in that year, the year before. So the stuff has maybe dropped off a little bit since then, but not all that much. It's still a sinker in the upper 80s. His main out pitch is a changeup that had a whiff rate about 36% in 2025, which is pretty solid. And then he threw a curveball a decent portion of the time as well. Whiff rate a little bit lower there at 23.5%. So really, Jack, it's just a ground ball profile, and you hope you kind of miss some bats along the way.
Well, they just upgraded their infield, right? So
yeah, there you go. I guess the two moves go hand in hand. You get Nolan Arenado to play third base, and you also want to have a ground ball pitcher in your bullpen. I guess it makes sense. Before we get out of here, we did want to look real quick at where the Diamondbacks stand with their payroll. Jack, I know you're always on top of this. You put this together for us. Jake McCarthy, of course, is no longer here. He was slated to make about $1.5 million. And then we see Arenado's name in here instead at $5 million for the 2026 season. D-backs total stand at 169.51 here, just under a month before spring training.
Right, and just to double reconfirm for everybody, the actual number of players signed to contracts, whether it was through extensions, long-term contracts, or arbitration, is 155.51 million. But they'd still need to fill out the rest of, at the bare minimum, they'd still need to fill out the opening day roster with another 11 pre-arbitration eligible players. It'd be about $9 million. They have to allow for the 40-man roster minor leaguers, who all make at least $60,000 if you're on the 40-man. Some of them make more, depending on how much major league time they've had. And then the team will always be budgeting for injury replacement call-ups during the season. So I put in $4 million for that. But that $4 million won't probably show up in some of the other public websites tabulations, because it's something that they have to account for and leave room for, because every team is going to have injuries. So I come up with 169.51 apples to apples. This is always the way I do it. So I'm consistent in my methodology so that I'm comparing apples to apples. When it comes to payroll, you could be talking about competitive balance tax. You could be talking about just opening day payroll, and of course you have your pre and post trade deadline, and there's all sorts of different numbers to look at. But this is the way I do it. And so that I maintain a consistent approach, and that way I can say, yeah, they raised X amount or they decreased X amount without fudging it because somebody's counting something and somebody's not counting that.
Well, I appreciate your precision on this, Jack. One of my pet peeves is people using the CBT payroll as like that being the team's actual payroll, when it's really not. I mean, depending on the
Right.
structure of some players' contracts, I mean, like Corbin Carroll, for example, like his CBT hit is just averaged out. It's the exact same every year, even though his contract goes until, 2030, 2031, and they're just splitting up that value evenly when that's not actually how the contract works at all. He makes a lot more money in a few years than he does right now. So we'll continue to stay on top of that. We'll continue to be here to react to whatever the Diamondbacks do in the coming days. Once again, Jack, not quite as confident this time around, but he does seem to think that something could be coming down the pipeline in the next few days. So maybe we'll be back here to react to that pretty soon. Thank you again to all of you for being with us on this episode. We really appreciate your time. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you're joining us on an audio-only platform, as I said earlier, we'd really appreciate it if you'd consider leaving us a 5-star review if you enjoy what you hear. Jack, you can find his work over on Arizona Diamondbacks on SI, reacting to all of the different things that are going on in Diamondbacks land, writing some great analysis pieces there as well. You can find us on social media also. I am at Jesse and Friedman on Twitter. Jack is at ShoeWizard59, and our show is at Snakes Territory. Jack, Nolan Arenado is a member of the Diamondbacks. Do you have any final thoughts here as we say goodbye?
Well, I also just want to shout out to Alex D'Agostino, the publisher over at Arizona Diamondbacks on SI. He's got all of this covered, everything that Mike had to say there as well. He's got transcripts and Q&A. So once you're done listening here, you've heard Mike for himself, but I would go over and check out those articles as well.
Alex is doing a great job over there. So good shout out. Alex is really killing it on that front. Thank you again to all of you for being with us. We really appreciate your time, and we'll be back with another edition of Snakes Territory very soon.